Yeah, that's looking at the clocks. Yeah. I'm still finding my, got that vehicle. Oh, got that microwave, whatever it is. No, we all hate to hear that. All right, gang, we got 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call. We're down 1. Daniel's not able to join us tonight, but the rest of the board is present. Anybody have additions to the minutes, or to the agenda, excuse me? Additions and changes to the agenda? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Got a motion by Mr. Bellis.
I'll second.
Casey, got a second? Okay. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. Spotlight School of the Month. Spotlight School is BHS, isn't it?
BHS, so
You
are up with your team.
Thanks, and good evening, everybody. So, been hearing a lot recently about the work that Whitney Benefits and the Ride is doing through CTE. So, we thought tonight we would share a little bit about what's going on in Buffalo High School in that arena. Originally, when Charles brought the spotlight idea to us, it was sort of a 10 or 15 minute block, and I know we've all gotten really long. So, we're going to try to kind of stick to that 10 or 15 minutes. You all know Andrew Borgelli and Michelle Dahlberg. These are the folks in the know, so I'll turn it over to them.
I don't know about that, but
Well, Andrew and I have been working with the Ride, and we've just had a great experience getting the opportunity to highlight the many different things we do at Buffalo High School. And then a couple weeks ago, we had the opportunity to present at the School Counselors Conference. And so we approached Give about we'd love to share with you all the great things that we're doing at Buffalo High School and how it's just kind of pulling together the curriculum and our student pathways and then the different organizations that we have at Buffalo High School.
So we kind of took our presentation from the School Counselors Conference and tweaked it a little bit for tonight. And our theme at that really focused around the work that Michelle and I do with career and technical education and career and technical student organizations. But as we presented at that conference and worked through, we really thought that applies to a number of the activities that we have at Buffalo High School. And that also ties into our work-based learning opportunities. So we're going to share some snippets on that this evening. So Yev introduced us. I think you know who we all are. So in addition to teaching at Buffalo High School and the Dash-In, I also serve as the state chair for Wyoming FBLA. So CTE and career technical student organizations are definitely a big part of what I do.
And I was in the business classroom for a lot of years and am still the advisor of FBLA. We have the largest chapter in the state, and we'll have 82 lovely cherubs going to our state conference next week.
All right, so kind of our posing question that we started our presentation with at the School Counselors Conference that we would ask all of you is, where do you see some of our graduating students in 5 years? Takers, answers?
we should be having some of them graduating with their bachelors, I would guess. We'll have some of them that are getting experience at the workforce and some military ones, I would guess.
Perfect. So kind of what we like to do, and an activity that I use in the classroom, if you don't take the time to align career pathways and set some goals and take advantage of some of the great things that we offer at Buffalo High School, and you leave your future to chance and roll the dice, you might not end up with the future that you would want. So we hope through the work that we get to do every day with students that they are not rolling their future and that we can help them find some success in whatever avenue they choose to take. So when we think about career and technical student organizations at Buffalo High School, we have FBLA, FFA, and Skills USA. And those are co-curricular opportunities that tie in with an academic and classroom component. And so those directly align from start to finish, from the classroom to the competitive piece. And there also is a great opportunity to connect those with work-based learning opportunities. But as Michelle and I were looking at that, we also thought a number of the activities that we have at Buffalo High School are also aligned to a career pathway. So whether that is Create or Yearbook or music, athletics, speech and debate. I see Tracy's in the audience, student council, Girls Who Code, all of those align to a career pathway in addition to the career and technical student organizations that we offer.
When we think about BHS, we are very intentional with our 320 students that we have right now to make sure that they're either career ready, military ready, or college ready. And we all use that vocabulary with our students. And we always start with career because it's most important, like what do you envision yourself doing and how they're going to get to those different pathways takes so many different options. So many times at the state, they're like, our kids are going to be college ready. You know, we have really tried at Buffalo High School to focus on career ready because we know that half the kids go to college and then, you know, only about 60% of those actually finish with their 4-year degree. So our biggest goal is that we are focusing on career ready. We want them career ready, life ready. And we can take those different pathways and we can use what's happening in our classrooms and then our multiple activities at Buffalo High School to make sure that we're really helping students find their niche.
So in your handout that we passed out, the National Career Cluster Framework was just updated by the Advanced CTE Association, and Michelle and I use this when we're placing students for work-based learning opportunities, but this also directly aligns to some of the academic programs that we offer, and then it aligns to our current technical student organizations, and then some of the additional opportunities that we have within the building. And so in this new framework, it's kind of cool if you go to the Advanced CTE website because it's an interactive and kids can kind of move over that and you can see how the different clusters overlap. And in this new model, everything is kind of cross-cutting. And so you can see a lot of the programs that are offered. We have those at Buffalo High School, and it's kind of cool to see how they intertwine and interweave, and then the opportunities that are there for students. And so when we think about working with kids to become career, college, or military ready, this is a big part of what Michelle visits with them about when they're selecting classes, when they're looking at scholarships, and then it directly ties into the career and technical education world when we're working with students and their CTE or life pathways.
When you look at this framework with the career wheel, I found it so empowering how they changed that inner circle for students so we can talk to them about, you know, caring in your community, cultivating resources, building and moving, creating experiences, investing in the future. It's awesome how they changed this career wheel to make our students and make our young people think about how they connect to the world around them. And it's not so much about a job, it's like, how are you going to give back to your school and your community? How are you going to become a productive part of where you live and what you do? And so we have enjoyed using this. It actually just came out in January with the new pathways. And so it's been fun to really visit with students and just make them see that they're a part of this great big world that we have, and we get to be a part of helping them shape that.
And so when we think about the benefits of being involved in activities at Buffalo High School, whether that's a dedicated career and technical student organization or something like student council or speech and debate, definitely personal development, self-confidence, communication skills, creative thinking, problem solving, and then experiential learning are a big part of that, regardless if you're in an athletic activity, a student activity, or a career and technical student organization. And that directly ties in with the work that we do, trying to get kids involved in a variety of different pathways.
So when we're working with our students, you know, our goal is, Cassandra and I are working with our kiddos when we have 8th graders today, and we're starting to talk to them just about the skills they're developing and how that's going to look and how they're going to maximize all the opportunities in Buffalo High School. Whether they're in the classroom or they're involved in activities, we know that they're going to just contribute to the growth and development of those young people. And so our goal is right away is 8th graders, and I know Jen Skaggs does a great job with them in the middle school as well, but we really try to continue that process and just make sure that we're helping them think about the different avenues that they can go into. When we combine our student organizations, our academic growth and opportunities, and then just the work we all do as the adults in the building, we just find that we have a great way to really pull all of this together. And as you take a look at that up there with work-based learning, the instruction, participating in our different organizations, we hope that students by the time they graduate really have a good idea of some different pathways they would like to go. So when we think about this, we're not talking specific careers, but we're talking like, how are you going to care and take action in your community? How are you going to use resources? And so that we're making them think about, there's lots of different things I can do in this pathway, and I can do this right out of high school. If I go to a trade school or a junior college, I can do this. If I get my 4-year degree, I can do this. And we try to make them just think about the steps and the process that they're a part of as they're planning their future.
And so then that directly ties into the work that students do as far as activities with our work-based learning program at Buffalo High School. And Jake shared a little bit with you at the last board meeting some of the work that we've done with Whitney as part of that. And so in that process, we put together kind of a handout of everything that we offer through the Working Smart program at Buffalo High School that can align through an activity like FFA all the way through the work-based learning component, and then that ties in with the career development and career counseling piece that Michelle offers out of the guidance office. And so I did have Yib link this in his board report. You maybe had a chance to look at some of the links and see a testimonial from a past graduate, Marco Vlasic, or some current student assignments. And then it also has all of the resources that we use to facilitate that program if you're interested in looking at any of those pieces. But we're super passionate about being able to take an activity and then tie that into some career pathways and just get to do some of that amazing work with students.
We always had an OJT program at Buffalo High School where students could go and they could work there 10 hours a week and they could get high school credit for a job. That's been around, I mean, as long as I've been at Buffalo High School. And so when Andrew came in, we were excited. He brought in some fresh ideas for the mentorship part where we could help students get to do, take a class period where they get to go observe and they get to work with different professionals in our community. And the program has really grown. Students enter one of two ways. Andrew has a career navigation class, which you can see on the map, how it fits in the sequence. And so we have, it's kind of fun because we have a variety of students take it. We have some kids take it that are like, I just want to be in Mr. Borgiano's class. Or we have kids that are like, I already know I want to be a dental hygienist, but I'm going to go in this class. Or there's some kids that are just like, I have no clue what I want to do. And we know that in the end, they get the opportunity to do that. Maybe you can tell them a little bit about your class and how you shape your career.
Yeah, so it's based on 3 guiding questions. Who are you, what do you want, and how do you get there? And so it's a semester class, and like Michelle said, we work with a variety of students and help them answer those 3 questions. And then out of that, students that didn't have an idea are like, I want to go try being a teacher. And so then we can roll them into the mentorship program, and then they have that opportunity, and they'll come back and they'll be like, yes, I love teaching. Or they're like, boogers are not for me. So can I switch class next semester, right? And so it's really kind of cool to see that opportunity. And then the other cool piece of students start in the mentorship capacity if they're offered a paid opportunity. So like right now we have a girl that's working with Judy Holmes at not Buffalo Realty, Century 21, excuse me. They are actually going to pay for Melissa to start her real estate work over the summer. And so next year, she'll essentially be on their staff once she passes her certification. And so she started this semester as just a mentorship student, and she planned some open houses, and they have been so impressed with her that now they're going to pay for her coursework, and then she has a spot on their team once she passes that exam. So those are the pieces that we really like to see. Melissa's also a stand-up member in FBLA. And so it's really kind of cool just to see how the activity piece and the full circle moments that happen through career planning and helping kids at Buffalo High School.
And so students, if they go through Andrew's class, it's a pretty seamless transition into the mentorship program. But I'll have some seniors who have just taken as much academic stuff as they can, and they get to their senior year and they're just like, I just really don't know. So one of our fun success stories last year, we had a senior girl, top of the class, in the top 10 of the class. She's like, I know I want to go in the health professions. I know I want to help people. Well, we set her up with a rotation where she went with an occupational therapist for about a third, and then she went with a nurse for about a third, and then she went with a speech language pathologist for about a third. And she got to finally, just see the difference in those career pathways. And it was fun just to see her excitement, like, this is what I want to do. She chose occupational therapy, which was pretty fun. Yeah, and so when you think about those different pathways, we can provide students a chance to really get an idea of what they'd like to do. Our partnerships in the community are incredible. When you guys look at this list, we have had just a great time with students and partnering with people in our community. Everyone wants to give back to education and give back to our young adults, and this list is incredible. You'll notice we broke it down by the new career wheel, so when it comes in and just really wants to be a helper, I can look at this, and here are different people that have partnered with us to help kids. Bill even took a couple of our kiddos at the bus barn who just wanted some exposure with some automotive and diesel, and just to have that exposure even with vehicles on that size. We have lots of our teachers in our district that have taken elementary education people. We have, in the dental hygiene world, we have
Chiropractic, we have real estate, some finance stuff. It's been super, super awesome.
Really fun. Our overall goal, we kind of think back to that grid, is just try and help every kiddo find a pathway. These are some real students that you guys would see in our community. We love this group. This is a group of brothers that all graduated from Buffalo. The first one is working on a CPA, the middle one works here at a bank, and the third one has his own business, and he's an entrepreneur and working at selling his product. And if you have teenage boys, they know about calling their mind and shoe sound. Other people in our community, it's been fun to watch them go in their pathways. Bryce, which is Bill's son, he was huge into FFA. He was just one of our great students, and he's using that passion that he had instilled through his FFA experience and his experience in the ag shop. Eric Lynn, following in his dad's footsteps, taking some of his knowledge of construction and business management, and he's being a successful person in our community. And Kayla Zizas, you guys might know her, huge into culinary arts, went into culinary arts in high school, in college, and is now working in Casper as a manager for Shamrock Foods. So those are like graduates from the last few years. But it's amazing, before we really didn't have this program, these kiddos found their pathways, and we're trying to be intentional that every student has that opportunity.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity to share the great things that we have going at Buffalo High School in all areas. Are there any questions that we can answer?
So Andrew, when I look at Willow Grove Cemetery and they're listed under healthcare, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the new wheel, kind of the way that they have grouped together, that was like the best spot. But hopefully no one is going to Willow Grove for their healthcare needs.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Maybe Andrew, we'll put you on the spot with being one of the state officers. Come back and present about the work you're doing at the state sometime too.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks.
And we
These
have
guys-
our students running for state office. So.
I think it'd be good to get that out in the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
These guys are great about telling you what we're doing at Buffalo High School and what's going on. They're not real great at blowing their own horn, though. What's happening at Buffalo already at BHS are the things that other schools are talking about getting to do. Much of that stuff these guys are already doing. So, Andrew, how many students are in?
So this semester, between the internship option and the mentorship option, we're like right at 20. We had a crew from first semester, they're doing the CDL program, so we kind of adjusted their schedule, but that still ties in with work-based learning. So if we were to count that group of kiddos, we would be like 25 to 30, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Next up, we've got alternate calendars. Casey gets to go first.
Well, it's just public comments, so
Please.
we have two calendars. We have New West, we have KC. On the schedule here is a public meeting, so this is Travis, where you would just ask, is there any public comment based on these two alternative calendars? That's what we're here to talk about.
Okay.
Is there anybody that has any questions or concerns for Dr. Hanson or Mr. Evans related to the alternatives calendars? Hearing none, we can move on.
Okay. That was
That's
easy.
just part of the requirements. So as an alternative calendar, we have to go in front of the community. So they've had meetings. This is one of the second ones. So this is just a process, okay? It's been in front of you as a board, unless you as a board have a question about the calendars they have attached.
All right. Okay, consent agenda, minutes, warrants, employment, and the Buffalo BHS calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion from Mr. Bellis, and Marcia Goddard will second. Discussion, board, any discussion on the consent? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign? Okay. Next up, action items, policy revisions, second reading. We've got 3 of them. This is IKF graduation. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve file IKF, graduation requirements, Buffalo High School and KC High School.
Got a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Fox and Goddard, motion and second, discussion board. We've been looking at this one for a while. Anybody got questions, comments, thoughts? Hearing none, all in favor of IKF as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay. Next up, IKFA, early graduation. We need to take a fine tooth comb to this one.
I'll make a motion to approve file IFKA, early graduation.
Just a note, IKFA.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry.
IKFA. Did I say J?
I think we got our F and K flipped the first time, but we're on the same page now. I got a motion.
I'll second.
Yeah, motion in a second. Discussion on this one, board. Yes,
Mr. Chair.
please.
So for me, I can't go along with it just because of the fact that as a junior, by March 1st of your junior year, you have to let them know if you're going to graduate. And the parents I've talked to who had kids that graduated said they didn't know they were going to graduate. If there was some way we could have moved that date back to October 1st of their senior year after they're in there, and that would still give us time before the December meeting, I'd have been okay with it. But I just, I don't like the March 1st of your junior year, but that's my opinion.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Dave, was that just for the specific institution of this year, or was it any year? Because I did ask about that when you leave the policy. It was any year. And so, my comment would be, there's a parent portion. Where is it? Number 3, and that's, I'm just trying to understand, like, you don't want to include a junior at all, second year semester junior in this policy at all? Is that what I'm trying to
No, I
understand?
want it to where if you're going to graduate early, I want to give you enough time to prepare yourself. So it would be, I'm just throwing a date out, October 1st of your senior year instead of your junior year, because it talks about, a letter of employment, this, that, and the other. I'm not sure you could do that.
Okay, I guess I need clarification on this policy. Is it that you would actually, okay.
I was
They
all in
wouldn't
favor of
graduate
it
until
if
the
you
first
pushed the date
semester
back.
of their senior
Senior
year?
year, yes.
You have some BHS experts in the building.
Yeah, and we listened to, I heard Michelle, and I heard her loud and clear, and I also heard some parents loud and clear that had their kids, and that's just my feeling.
Okay, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Is this March 1st deadline? Go ahead, Charles.
No. Michelle, give a speaker. Michelle.
Oh.
Sorry, voice is real loud right now. This is just more of an intentional scheduling. So there's also that section down there that there's extenuating circumstances that if a child is not in March, but really they're visiting with the counselors at all the schools about what they're on track for the following year. So correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but at the end of their junior year, you guys have pretty much scheduled out what classes are where they're headed in graduation. If there's an extenuating circumstances, policy still allows them to come back in the fall of their senior year and apply that. So that's what we tried to cover. I know what I heard from the board and through that discussion is a set of expectations so everybody knows when we're scheduling, so that you're aware of it, so that everybody's kind of on the same track. So there are some, unfortunately, I say this way, loopholes in this process, but this is just intentionally scheduling with the counselors. So when they're sitting down and scheduling their senior year, that said, hey, I want to graduate early. These are the plans that are in place. Is I think what the intention of this is. But another thing that we haven't discussed, and we brought this in, is if this policy does pass, there's a transition period over the next couple of years. So anybody that's already on track for early graduation, we could stay with the old policy until, so there's an adoption period that we added that little star in there from last board meeting.
Okay.
So I'm hearing you loud and clear. I'm just, Michelle, would there be a problem with pushing it back to their senior year? Or do you feel like they need to have it by March 1st of their junior year so they can align their curriculum, that they need to set the classes to be there? Because I think there's a lot of kids that they may have the credits their senior year and something happens, and I just don't want to make it difficult for them to graduate early if that's what their desire is. And I know that you can go and ask.
And so right now, the students are selecting their classes for next year, but we won't get to building the schedule till closer to the first part of April. But I do know, I have an idea which kids, would like to graduate early, but there's always those couple extra that they get through their summer and they just kind of feel that a little more sense of maturity, a little more vision on what they want to do. That kind of like Charles was saying, I wouldn't want them to be handicapped if they hadn't decided in March that that's what they wanted to do. And I feel like the timeline has worked pretty well, and that's just my perspective, so I don't know how you guys feel about it. But by September 15th, they've had conversation with Give and I, they're getting their letters to us. Their parents get in on that communication. So by October is when it's to you guys by the school board, by the old timeline. I feel like that's been effective. But in March, we do have a handful of kiddos that know that's what they'd like to do.
So if I could, maybe it would help me change my mind. And I'm a senior. I didn't get in by March 1st. And it's October, November, and I want to graduate. What's the process, the system that I have to go through to do that?
So we had the one student that decided after that September deadline and your October meeting. And so he visited with Mr. Ostheimer, presented his letter, presented his purpose, what was his goals, what was he going to do. We really try to work with students to make sure it's not just to go home and just take the semester off. So of our 5 early grads, 3 of them are in college. One is working at the hospital and the other one's working at the Veterans Home. So, this group that we just had were very intentional in what their focus was. So that late student had to definitely visit with Mr. Ostheimer and I and tell us why. Like, why all of a sudden did you change your mind?
So what I'm hearing from you, if they have a good reason, you'll grant it. Is that what I'm hearing?
And then ultimately it comes to you guys to grant it.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Does that cover it?
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. Okay.
Other questions or discussion from the board? Anybody else got anything here?
Travis, if it's something, you could still table it, we can revisit it.
I'm probably okay with it.
Knowing there's an outlet clause.
As long as, like I say, if they come and present and we're going to allow it.
I'll just clarify, so
Please.
you guys would expect a letter of early graduation intention in March. And then you guys would approve it at this time, or would it wait until they started their senior year?
I think the intent is that kids would be working with you, demonstrating a letter of intent that they're on track for graduation.
To us.
Yes.
And then in the fall.
And then you can set their master schedule, and then everybody kind of knows, and then you would consider those kids that are potentially on track for graduation.
So would that be in September then when we started the next school year, or would it be by the end of May?
I would hope it would be first part of the school year. So.
First part of the school year. Okay.
Circumstances, like a recommendation from the principal, I think that is, in my opinion, sufficient, allowable room for us to work with kids who may change their mind, from their junior to senior year and still not put us in within a dated timeline that sometimes I think can get sticky when it is.
I just don't want to tie their hands if
Sure.
they decide they want to go to the military, they're done with school, they want to get out, as long as we're not.
I think that would
Fire,
certainly
no, you
fall
cannot
under the
get out of
umbrella of the
And I
extended
see it that way, but I can also see it the other way. If they're looking at it as into their junior year, they're looking ahead. some of the seniors, not a lot, there's a few of them out there that they just want to coach that last year. And if they, I think that helps, that March thing kind of puts that into, say, well, if I want to do this, I better think about it earlier than.
Is it an intentional
wait till I
plan?
see- Yeah,
I
so,
agree.
but there is
But
a path for them if they.
having said that, Benito, as long as they know, because I don't think too many kids read the policy. Yeah, so.
Well, with all 5 of our early grads, we really pushed them to be halfway qualified. So one of those boys took 2 English, 2 maths, 2 sciences, so he could be ready to graduate early. So the March conversation is definitely what it's talking about, that we have to make sure that we've got those goals ahead for you. So.
All right, thank you, guys.
Okay, any other discussion on this one? All right, all in favor of approving IKFA as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, that one's through. And finally, we've got, better make sure I get my bifocal name right here. EFA, we're replacing EFAI with EFA.
I have EFAI, or is that not right?
Yes, but
When you,
In the
the
link,
code
but
is
not
gonna
in
change.
Oh,
yeah, when you grab the link, it'll show you a strikeout.
Yeah.
That's why I was being careful to open that one up, because I knew there was a booby trap there.
I remember this from last time.
Okay, this is student health and wellness.
I'll make a motion to approve file EFA, health and student health and wellness.
All right, we've got a motion
Second.
and a second. Trustee Maya. Okay, we got this one, guys, discussion on student health and wellness. This is to do with the credit reduction one. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none. All in favor of approving EFA signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Right on. Okay, that, if I'm right, that completed second reading. Down to first readings.
I'll make a motion to approve policy EAF, special use of school buses, vehicles.
Second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Goddard and Bellis, and we'll go with discussion. EEAF, special use of school buses or vehicles. Any discussion on this one?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
My question on this one was in the, did I open the right one? Yeah, so in the first paragraph, it says, transportation for student field trips and extracurricular activities when, in the judgment of school administrators, it will enhance the student's learning program. Then the last paragraph says, or somewhere it says, educational purposes only.
Last sentence.
Yes,
Last
that's
sentence.
line
Is that, what's the difference? I mean, do we need both of those sentences?
there. Yeah, me too.
So Connie and Bill, you're here with what this looks like.
I can pull up chapter 2 or chapter 44 on transportation, and it'll tell you we can only get reimbursed for field trips that meet certain criteria, and I'm thinking that this meets the criteria. So I don't know that for sure, but I can double check that before the next reading, that it says that it meets those criteria. But that's one of the things, that some things are not reimbursable and some things are, and they have to meet educational guidelines and all that to be able to be approved as reimbursable, or it has to be a WSHA a sanctioned event in the summer.
Yeah, just as I'm reading it, it seems ambiguous. What's the difference between enhance the student's learning program or being educational? I think one sentence that meets that criteria.
We'll just double check it, yeah,
Confusing.
yeah, and just make it match exactly what it says in the chapter.
Okay. Other,
Okay, Bill?
It just has to tie to curriculum.
I think it's kind of like a lot of the other policies we passed, is we're just making sure that it meets the federal guidelines or state guidelines. That's what I think.
Okay,
Which you are correct, because when we're getting audited or there's legal attorneys involved, they look for those.
we have the words of the statute in there. Okay. Other discussion? All in favor of approving EEAF as presented on first reading, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay. Next up. EEAC, school bus scheduling and routing.
Make a motion to approve policy EEAC on first reading.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second, Bellis and Fox. Discussion on this one.
Mr. Chair, I have a question, but I think we gotta find it.
Okay,
This is another one that, it says the same thing twice. In the highlighted text, it talks about publicly owned and publicly maintained roads, except for safety of passengers, blah, blah, blah. And then fourth paragraph, it says, district buses shall be operated only on state, federal, and high priority maintained county roads. Which one of those is worded the way it needs to be? And why do we have both? Do we need both?
are we both required or one covered? Fair question.
We will double check with chapter 44 or chapter 2
Okay.
to make sure it matches.
And then I have
Go ahead.
in the third paragraph, not including the strikeout one, it says a bus route may be discontinued by board approval when the number of students riding that bus decreases to less than 6. And I guess my question is, when the number of students that regularly ride that bus decreases, or is it the number of students that are eligible to ride that bus? Because if a couple of months go by and that student isn't riding the bus, but then later on in life, during that semester, they need to start riding that bus again, but we terminated it too quick.
So to answer that question, the key word there is may. So we may, and those are all things that get taken into consideration. So it would be different if the wording said we shall discontinue it after, but we may. So that this just gives us the ability to flex through that read depending on the situations.
I had a question on this one. If the bus route is down to 6 students, can we send a Suburban just to make it easier to get around it?
Well, definitely is a possibility, but it's the may as well. You know, we don't have any routes right now that have less or 6 or less participants. They all have quantities much more than that. But it comes back to what Reed's point was earlier. If they're not riding consistently, they may be in a sport during the season and then start riding again in the spring or things like that. So we have to look into that. But right now we don't have any routes that we're currently pushing that envelope with. But yeah, there's always that possibility of going to that Suburban as well, although it's not as safe a vehicle as the school bus.
A lot easier to fit in though. Okay, any other discussion?
Mr. Chair. Bill, is there any, since you've been the transportation director, has there been any time that you have found a need to go down a private road to pick kids up?
Of course, there always is, but we don't, because that's part of the policy. So we always say that we have to stay on the maintained road. We try not to go down any of the private roads just because of the liability that comes with that. So we do meet the parents at the maintained road.
Yeah, so that my question, was is there a need to do it in extenuating circumstances? And from what I'm hearing you,
Well, there always could be, but no, it's usually out of convenience. The need would be out of convenience or to keep the schedule going, or the fact that a certain family, just was unavailable and we wanted the kids to get home. There's that possibility. But what we look at is we adhere to policy, so we make them meet us at the road. And that's just been the way that we've always done it. That's how we do the business of it. So.
yeah, and for me, if there were a storm or something, or it was cold out, and for whatever reason the parents couldn't get to the bus, I would hate to see the kids have to walk a quarter mile at 30 below it.
And we won't do that. We usually haul them back to school, or we stay, and make arrangements. We're always looking at emergency contacts, grandpa, grandma, the neighbors, things like that. availability to make those extenuating circumstances there, but we usually haul them back to town, and we have had that happen in the past. Not sure.
Thanks, Bill.
So Travis, as a board chair, I think some key words you as a board need to realize with this policy for me is the availability of resources. So whether that's where we have manpower, or whether we have buses, or we have Suburbans, that's the key component of this, is with the availability of resources. Because sometimes there's that perception that we can provide all these routes, but if you don't have, the state regulates us with the number of buses that we have, and we're also limited by the manpower that we have. So those are some things just as a key for you as a board before the second reading to understand. That's probably the one determiner for a lot of our decisions.
Other questions, thoughts on this one? Okay, all in favor of approving EEAC on first reading, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right. Next up, EBCE, school closing and cancellations.
I'll make a motion to approve policy EBCE, school closing and cancellations.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion on this one. Close and cancel.
Not shorter.
Yeah, we made that one short.
Somebody was efficient with their cross-out pen.
So, Mr. Chair,
Please.
is there a reason we took the timelines out of this policy? Because I thought the timelines were they were a good gauge for parents to know that if I haven't received anything by 6 o'clock, because there are numerous parents who have to get their kids to a school bus stop, and it's nice to know.
So for me, that's more of a procedure than a policy because circumstances are different. So it's not the 4:30 in the morning text that Charles sent out one time, which was the wrong time to send it out. Yeah, Ricky, that's right. So sometimes we make the call at 7 because the following day, we've already said we're gonna be a 1 hour, 2 hour late start. So there's some different time frames that things kind of happen. I like the simplicity of this. I mean, we can talk about the procedure, but typically I make the call prior to the first bus route that goes out. So that's 5 or 5:30 in the morning. Bill will do that with that specific route, and then I try to get everything out by 6 o'clock. But there are circumstances where it would be later than that. And the great example of that was when we made the call to do an hour late start on Friday, with the intention is I could be making a call at 7:30 Friday morning if that was, if we had to actually cancel school depending on the weather. So just sometimes those time frames are a little more flexible, just depending on the circumstances. But I think traditionally, most of the time, most of my messages go out before 6.
I just want to make sure it doesn't hurt the kids on Powder River if you're too late with getting it out.
No, they're the first, when we're talking at 4 o'clock in the morning, if there's a route that's canceled that's impacted by them, those families are the first ones to know.
Okay.
And some of those will be done right then at that point in time, so.
So you text them.
We're actually discussing with those families as well, since they're so far out. I call that family. I say, hey, what are you guys seeing down there? Here's what's happening here. And so they're part of that decision-making process with us as well. So definitely they're on board.
That's a great way to get some weather at the far end of the county. Good thinking.
Well, we've had to make a call at 7 o'clock, even though it went out, so we've changed some things. Mother Nature and the National Weather Service can sometimes be off. But the reality is, I'll tell you, a big impact for me is when YDOT all of a sudden just shuts down roads. You're contacting them and everything's good, and then all of a sudden YDOT flips up the
road closed
signs, and Bill's calling me and going, what are we doing now? Well, people are on the road, so we just have to remember those are some things we have to work with too. So
Mr. Chair, the other thing that we crossed out, Charles, and I'm just reading this. If kids did come to school, say country kids came to school, they were allowed to come into the school and there was personnel there, and now with the new policy, there isn't. So how will we address that?
So help me, Dave, with that. So
So I think if, I don't care if they're country kids or who, but if they got there, the school was closed and they didn't get the message, didn't know when they got there, I think in the past, and administrators can help me out, I think they were allowed to go in the building to stay warm until their parents or whoever were notified, but we've taken that out now. So like I say, how,
but again,
What will
if
happen there?
schools are closed, I guess I'll let administrators speak. Are you still in the buildings when schools are closed in the mornings?
typically not, probably.
Depends. Yeah, I would say it depends as well, but, I mean, you know, even in the high school, when we watch parents drop off kids at the front door, this morning, parents hang out there until kids go in the door. So if the door isn't open, they're not going in.
Well, maybe the question I should ask is, have you had that happen in the past? And it doesn't sound like it's a problem then?
Well, not in the time I've been at Buffalo.
We had parents drop their kids off when we didn't have school or we had a late start. Yes, we've had that happen.
And so with the new policy, what would happen now?
I would think the same thing that happened before.
So because you guys are
There would be
typically,
somebody in the building.
I'm just concerned about the safety.
Andrew, got anything else on this one? First reading? Okay, all in favor of approving E, B, C, E on first reading, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, and finally, DN. Policy DN, disposal of school property.
Make a motion to approve policy DN on first reading.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Okay, discussion on this one. This is a little bit of a spin-off from the summer clean out, wasn't it, Charles?
Connie, I'll let you speak.
Yeah. So anything over $500 or $500, according to somebody out there, we have to come to the board and get permission to sell. And according to this is that we have to do all of it by seal bid. So we have a lot of stuff that we have collected that's worth more than 500. We would like to do an auction or a surplus sale. And we can't do that with this policy in place. So that's what we're coming and asking for us to have that change so that we could do a online or a live auction with the things that are over $500. And we would come to you with the list, we would let you know what it is and what our plans would be for those items.
Thank you.
Connie, if I could ask you, and I should have looked it up, I know there's a state statute that I just want to make sure that we're not
I can look that up and make
crossing
sure.
the state statute, because there is a statute that talks about what you have to do with items over a certain value.
And I'll double check that, but yes.
I know you're right. I think it was 500, but I would like to double check that too.
We better make sure what that
Yeah.
says.
Probably most likely saying that you guys would have to approve those.
So we can pass it on first reading, but we better make
Let's get-
sure that
yeah.
we're not
Get the facts
trying
before we
to
go.
cross the
We'll do that.
state statute.
So it did, you did cross out that the board has any right to reject those, so is that?
Well, so if we're in the auction,
No.
we'll put a reserve on that most likely, and then, so you wouldn't be able to
Yes.
disapprove that. That was kind of a thought process on that,
Okay.
so.
Do over after we auction it off. That's fair.
Makes sense.
Other questions or thoughts on this one?
My question maybe doesn't have an answer after what Connie just said, but she said by someone. When equipment, tools, materials become worn out, obsolete, surplus, or otherwise unusable in the schools, they may be disposed. Who determines that?
Well, so a shop teacher would tell me whether or not this is broken, it's not worth repairing. A principal can tell me that somebody that's got the expertise, I would not determine that. I would research things, I would ask people. John has got a really good background on equipment, so does a lot of other people. So we would do some research before we let anything like that go. We've got a tractor sitting over by that's been sitting there for years and years and years. We'd like to probably get rid of that, yeah.
Sometimes, if you're looking, something's broke in the park to fix it, 50% of the value, kind of like just, what you do with a car that's salvage title type thing. Those are some of the things, instead of fixing that, we would just replace it and put that piece of equipment up for sale and let somebody else fix it type of thing, so.
I've worked in corporate companies that every single piece of equipment has a owner, and the owner is just somebody that works for the company. But do big equipment things have like somebody that's in charge of knowing whether that thing is worth what it says it's worth? Or
I would think it would be the supervisor in the department that's being used. Yeah.
And that's what I would ask Reed is who determines the value, even though there's not much nowadays.
Well, we also look at the depreciated value as well. So if it's on our depreciation book, if it's an asset on our book, and it has a depreciation value still, that will guide us. And then if it's depreciated to zero, then really it's going to have to be the supervisor calling us and telling us what that might be. And we may think it's worth something and take it to auction, and it doesn't, bring that. So we're just trying to be a little bit more efficient, so it's not a sealed bid for every
options. Yeah. Anybody else on this one?
Sometimes Dave puts
Google the eBay value. That's funny. All right, all in favor of approving DN on first reading, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right. Administrative contract renewal is up next.
I make a motion to approve the administrative contract renewal for the 25-26 school year.
That's second that.
Got a motion and a second, Fox and Bellis. Discussion here. Anybody have discussion on renewing the admin contracts?
Just a comment. Thank you, everybody, for wanting to keep doing your job.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Hang on. Anybody got anything else? All right. All in favor of approving administrative contract renewal for 25-26 school year, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay. Smart device pilot recommendation.
I make a motion to approve the smart device pilot recommendation.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second, Fox and Goddard. Any discussion here? This one's we've been talking about this for a while. We knew the cell phone thing was coming. Here's our first swing at how to fix it.
It goes into effect when?
April 7th.
April 7th. I knew there was a 7th.
Yeah.
So Dave, with the approval up here tonight with Kalen Communication and the work we're already done, so we'll start communicating out to the stakeholders starting tomorrow with some of that stuff. So.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
I'd just like to make a comment. I was a part of that committee that worked on this policy and the findings, and the process that we went through as far as it began a couple of years ago. And I felt like we slowed it down well. We took advice and feedback from a number of entities within the community, stakeholders, parents, kids. I felt like we did our fiduciary duty as far as that goes. This was there was lots of wide open talk between the committee. I don't know, at any given time, I think there was 20 to 23 maybe. And so I just want the public to know that we looked at all aspects, and there was hard conversations, and there was good productive conversations getting to this point. So
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have
Please.
one question. One of the devices that is on the list talks about, I think it's in all the schools, but maybe it's just 9 to 12, personal laptops. Is that currently, or you're not allowed to use a personal laptop in high school? Just curious.
Technically, they shouldn't.
Because we're required by federal law to have our students with some sort of,
Non-WhatsApp device.
yeah. And we have to keep it secured where they can't do those things, and we can't do that with a person.
Yeah, I can see that. I just didn't know if it was
An existing.
already an existing
Sometimes they sneak them in.
situation or if this was brand new.
Other questions or thoughts on this one? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the smart device pilot recommendation, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay. Report time. Principal reports. Who's got questions for the principals? I'm gonna start. Jake, how many people did you get at your kindergarten or? Sorry, Reed, go ahead. You take it.
How many kindergartners showed up at the
We had 6. So we're hoping that all 6 come. We have rumor there might be 8.
Lori, what number? You were 27, I think you said?
4.
24? What is normal this time of year? Is that average?
Typically, we run 30, 36 through each screen.
So I thought that was down a little too, but I didn't know for sure. Thank you.
So we have another one coming up in April.
Kids, come on.
I know, they keep signing up, so we're hopeful. We've got, keep advertising through the preschools.
Sorry, Lori, what did you say? What number?
We had 24 at the first screening.
Anybody else got anything for the principals?
Just a comment, I think we need to give a shout out to Julie Snyder for being on the, I guess, the AI committee that she was nominated to. I think that's awesome to have somebody from our school do that.
It is.
So thank you, Julie.
Good job.
Just another,
And that journey's not over yet, just so.
yeah, just another one. How are the ski trips going, guys?
Fantastic, except for the trees.
Nobody's got hurt this year?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Uh-oh, don't on it.
Get rid of trees, be golden.
No, they.
But anyhow, it's been good other than the trees. Who's still, the trees are winning.
Train the chaperones up better.
Yeah, well, that could be the weak link. I was one. I got that. Anybody else? Anything for the principals?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
also, I was kind of excited to see like the list of honor roll students coming from BHS. So that list seemed kind of big
Large,
in
yes.
my mind, so I was excited to see that, so.
All right.
Oh, I had a question.
Go.
Middle school.
Yeah.
The rock, paper, scissors challenge.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool, but can you tell me more about what that program is?
Sources
How
of
often do you do something like that?
It's our sources of strength, students of strength, sorry. Sources of strength, sorry, that is correct. It's basically a program we've had we're about year 3 into it, and it's just a way to build on the positives of building relationships with our students, with our staff, with our community, and focusing on how we can have those healthy relationships within our school and build on those positives. Like the rock, paper, scissors challenge was a way for students to interact with each other, to interact with staff. We've just done, if you come into our commons, we have a display in our commons area on the wall where everybody had their strengths and what they put on a puzzle piece, and then we build it into one big puzzle and put all the pieces together. And it's just a way to show how we're connected, how we're building as a school. And as you go through that, more and more students are trained as mentors, all the way from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and you're just spreading that positivity among students. Yeah, it's been led by Jen Skaggs, she's done an excellent job. We have a number of teachers who've been involved with this over the years, and it just keeps growing, and it's a fun part of middle school and building those connections.
Sure. One thing I just wanna spin off your sources of strength. I did the training that first year, you guys, and super cool. And my daughter was one of the first classes that went through the junior high when you guys brought it on. And that class of students are freshmen this year at BHS, and they're utilizing some of those things through that program. So it's really important. So I think for maybe the new board members, if you don't know what it is, look it up, or you can give us a little treat sometime about it, because it's actually a really cool program. And I always love when I see what is coming from school to school to school is integrating all the way through. And that's something that I've noticed a lot with this incoming freshmen. They still reflect back on some of those things in the big wheel, the pie chart of the social, which I still have done in my office too. But it's pretty cool.
Yes.
So if you get an opportunity to kind of dig deep about it, it's pretty cool.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Hanson, I think congratulations to you. Your school for 3 years in a row, 6th place as far as 22 school goes for graduation, and that's what we're here for. So thank you.
Anybody else? Anything from the principal?
Mr. Chair, so I don't have anything for the principals, but the draft coaches handbook.
Okay, yep.
So who helped us with this document, Charles? Was this, or this hasn't been in place yet? This was.
So it's in the draft process. So that was part of the initiative that was pushed out last year through the AD's high school leadership. So if you want to speak to that, but legal and HR most help with the development of this.
And so this is going to be implemented, hopefully. So I don't know, there's so many questions I have. So there was one about the coaches are given a budget prior to the season. How is that determined, and what are they told what they can spend their money on, what they can't? All these activities are so
varied.
Yeah, and does it go year to year?
Ryan Mader does a great job, and so does Ron. On their budgets, they really kind of know exactly what their officials are going to cost, all the games. We have a set amount, right, about what they can spend on meals, correct? Or they tried to maintain that?
For the high school, yeah.
The high school. And so Ryan works with each one of his coaches. I'm sure Ron does too, on what that is. And so their budgets are pretty.
So they just get a budget to say, you have $100, you have 70 students, good luck with that. But they're not, but are they told you can only spend it on meals, you can spend it on hotels, or?
Yeah, so Ryan kind of figures that. I think Ron does too, figures out what that travel cost is, but maybe they need some supplies. So if they need basketballs, they need scorebooks, they need some training, they need some things. So they work really closely with the ADs as to what all that is. Okay. So I have not been in the conversation with the coach, but I know that I've been in conversation with Ron and Ryan, and they do a really excellent job on their
I can speak to the middle school and that, yeah, it's a budget. They're giving so much to requisition generally at the middle school level. High school is going to be a little much more in depth because you are dealing with travel, with meals, with hotels. And Mr. Mader can go into more detail on that. Middle school, we do not pay for meals.
Right.
So it's pretty much going to be a requisition you're going to see towards basic supplies. As an AD, I cover all the medical supplies and make sure medical kits are properly equipped, and those are all taken care of. But primarily with middle school sports, you're going to see, scorebooks, balls, maybe something like a few things like cones for soccer or something along those lines. I know swimming a couple of years ago did some goggles, something like that. And then if there's any extenuating needs, then we would have that conversation and look at what else we could do. Connie's working really well with us right now with uniforms. And of course, you get into the big one with football where you have to recondition helmets. That's going to be a lot more expensive. So that's something we've been able to set up over the years, and how much that costs and be able to budget that. And
But that's, I mean, that's not saying to your football coach, you need to put your helmets in that budget, or is it?
So when I got here, that was never part of the budget, so I'll just be transparent and say, first year here, there was a lot of hot topics because we took money from Meadowlark Elementary and bought football uniforms. Because it wasn't planned or budgeted. So part of those things like, just speaking what it is. So I sat down with all the ADs and says, we can't do this anymore. We know we have to have equipment, we have to have helmets reconditioned, you have to have certain things. So we need to start budgeting some of those out. So as we went through this new software and starting aligning some of those things, there are just some non-negotiables that for safety reasons, and actually putting uniforms into a rotation so that we can actually budget for them, long-term planning. So that's part of this budgeting process. But also, three and a half years ago, we were 200% over the model. We were getting funded up $600,000 and spending $1.2 million on activities. We currently spend $750,000 just on salaries and benefits for coaches. So through the ECA, we're about $860,000 to $1.1 million. If you actually listened to Senator Scott a couple weeks ago when he identified a district that spends more than they give for activities and takes it away from teachers, the Johnson County School District was the most over the model out of any district in the state. We are currently down to about 100, I think we tried to land at 130% over the model with the ECA, so we're at about 1.1. So really managing within that budget of what we got, and it's only going to get a little tighter as we go through this process. But ultimately, the goal is the superintendent, the business managers to say, hey, this is the amount of money you have per program, whether it's Jake's school, whether it's a middle school, or whether it's a high school. Then we got to start determining how we divide that up. But a lot of that has to take place at the individual schools with where we're at. But right now, the overall picture for you as a board is at one point in time, we were 200% over the model. We reduced that. I know we have probably more kids than any other district in the state with 85 to 90% of our kids. But ultimately, as you a board, if you want more of a percentage to go towards activities, then that's a discussion we have with our budgeting tool as we move forward with that. But the key factors are, it's a hard conversation, and I'm just gonna talk about the elephant in the room. It's been a hard conversation, and the journey's not over yet. But as our numbers go down, but we have been very fortunate the last 2 years because of an ECA. We haven't seen a huge cut in a lot of programs around the district. But from a district that was at 1,300 kids and we compete in a class 3A at the high school level, where most of those schools are 16 to 1,900 kids with a much more extensive budget, what some of that looks like, we do have to start looking at what those budgets deal. But I would hope as a school district, we can work with each of the schools to kind of anticipate what they can spend and can't spend. But that's also part of the reason why we have limited on, again, when we talked about combination school agreements and some of those other things, some of those limits have come into play.
Well, I'm glad that this is coming out, this draft, and I appreciate that. It's a great start, and also, I don't want to get rid of activities either. Like, I love it that all of our students, so many of them, participate in things like it's being part of something outside. Building that team is pretty cool.
And I want to make the public comment too, so do I. I think activities play a great role, but how do you afford it? That's unfortunately the position I am coming to you as a board. What does that look like? Why don't we have a booster club? A lot of these districts are supportive, have some very strong booster clubs to support some of those, that rec district funding, but I don't want to put the rec district in a position, but your funding is going to go down with the tax cuts. I mean, some of that funding is going to look a lot different through what these activities look like. So,
historically, the way it used to be was each activity was supposed to put a budget in to you, Connie, and Mrs. Kervin, I don't want to call on you, but I'm going to. Did you ever submit a budget for what?
I'd love to fill that question. Actually, to answer your earlier one, you said, what is it like as a coach? So I'm the speech and debate coach this year. I was a cheerleading coach for 10 years. And I've also been a student council advisor in the past for 14 years. So I've seen a few different styles of budget. And it's been very transparent. I've not been able to necessarily request, but there's always been a sit-down conversation. Mr. Mader is very open. And he'll sit down with you as a coach and say, this is what we currently have budgeted from this year. And then if it's a cut year, we're going down 10% or whatever, then he'll explain that to you in advance. Or if it's staying the same, he'll explain that to you. And then he asks you questions like, how did it work this year for dues and fees? Let's take a look at what you spent and then what you were allocated. And if you spent under what you were allocated, let's adjust that down for this next year because you didn't need it. Or if you overspent it, maybe we need to bump it up. And so he does have a really transparent conversation with you as a coach. And so I'll give a shout out to our activities director for that. I know that Mrs. Dahlberg could probably speak to that even more so than I, because she's been a coach for a lot of years in our district.
So the conversations are happening, but you don't actually submit a budget to Connie. So
It's all aggregated by, I think, Ryan Mader's handling that activities budget. And he does a really good job, keeps a spreadsheet on every single sport. And sometimes it's hard, when I first started with cheerleading, we had pretty much no money. And then they added in money over the years. I know Kenzie started with me my first year, I think. And they added in money over the years as they realized, oh, the team is growing, there are more kids, there are more needs, we do want to get you down to state. And so I feel like it's been a pretty fair and open process as a coach from that perspective. I think that's what you were asking.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Anybody got anything else on the principals or the coaches' activities handbook? All right, next up, ops team reports. Anybody got questions for the ops team?
I do. This one's for you, actually.
Starting off.
It's not even
Sit in the chair.
not even a question. It kind of is a question, John, but I saw on your list of projects here. Okay, so we got shot clocks and scoreboards. So Casey did come to the rec district last year for a scoreboard. That being said, you can apply for that. I'm hoping you're looking at coming to the rec board or have thought about that because, and I don't know, maybe you're not the one who gets to do that. Maybe it's.
That would be Mr. Evans.
No, I mean, don't you need some of these for, is it just KC needs a new scoreboard?
Yes, that'll be covered under my major maintenance.
And then who needs the shot clocks though?
Every school.
Okay, so.
It's a new requirement.
So this has to be for the 25-26 school year.
Right.
Mandated by WASHA that we have shot clocks. We're gonna put them in all the schools because Buffalo High School, when they hold their tournament, they're using Cloud Peak CCMS. Have to have shot clocks to have it count as a
usable facility.
Usable or
Sanction. Yeah.
So I talked with the county as well for like Harold Gerard, because Jake will use that at times. They were talking about putting in for 1%. I'm yet to hear back on that, but I have a quote on that. The quote's a little high right now. We got to trim it. We're looking at about $63,400 for the shot clocks.
And that's covers all our gyms.
Yes, and scoreboards, which we got to take out $14,000 for KC's new scoreboard with major maintenance. So I got to trim it down. I just got the quotes last Friday. But yeah, that's going to be a pricey one.
And we received $8,000 in donations from State Farm that Ryan was able to generate.
But like the high school has to update all their controllers because they're 3,000 models, where Ron at CCMS and at Cloud Peak have 5,000, which they work. So that adds another big chunk of change to the.
So I guess, does that come under major maintenance then?
Not the shot clocks.
Not the shot clocks.
Okay.
The scoreboards.
The scoreboards. Okay. All I'm saying is your rec board's here. This is an option. I don't know, just.
One thing I wanted to add, that I did in my report on the boiler walkthrough. That's gonna happen this Thursday at 10 a.m. There's 3 other walkthroughs in the state for projects. So they wanted to move it. I'm not moving it. If they want the project, they'll come to the walkthrough. They can divide and conquer. We gotta get moving out so we get, and that kind of goes in line with number 2 on there with the VAVs. That price tag's a little high on there, but 33,000 of that is test and balance. With that much movement in the building and adjusting, I think it's a good time that we test and balance that facility to get everything where it needs to be, air flows, water flows, all that. And another thing that's in that quote is kind of shocking to me. Last Tuesday, tariffs took effect. $9,840 in tariff for that project.
Well, they haven't went in yet. Isn't there a month pause?
It says potential. I supposedly went in Tuesday, but I'm seeing that in a line item already. So when this boiler bid comes, that could be an additional cost. Because all these components, I mean, look at what we did with the elevator.
Yeah.
All those components coming from all over the world. So that's something we're gonna have to watch. Just want to be transparent about that.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Zink, while you're up, the C's room remodels, is that something, Craig, is that something that's mandated to get them up to specs, or do we just need to remodel?
Well, we had the opportunity to, Mr. Anderson and I went over to Sheridan County, toured some schools, went over to Campbell County and toured our rooms, C's rooms. I don't know if I can say seclusion rooms. They're just makeshift spaces in our buildings right now. So they're not really up to snuff. I did one at Clear Creek a couple years ago because we had to do something in there. It was damaged. I mean, there's quite a bit of damage to it. So what we're looking at doing is what we saw in Sheridan County was they used a rubberized, seamless, welded in place walls, floors, doors. Then we went over to Campbell County, we saw they use like gym pads. I don't think Craig or I would like either one of those, so that's what we're looking at doing is getting these rooms so that kids can't hurt themselves if they're in there and, need to get cooled down or if they're isolated. And,
So that's what I asked. Is that mandated by the federal government?
By
What room looks like?
By Superintendent Oski because of the liability.
Okay.
I asked that Craig and, let's get over here, John. Go visit.
Medicine's taking effect, Charles.
Go look at these other facilities because there just has been some issues. So to answer your question, we have a liability when we're offering these programs to make sure these rooms are established correctly. So in that process, it was, I started the initiative and then told Craig and John to go look at what these other programs are doing and to somehow plan and build rooms similar to theirs that will take some of the liability off the district when things are happening.
in my last report, I said that, there was a plan and a directive by Mr. Oski to do this, and this is the direction we're heading.
There's just too much liability if we don't do it right, so
Yeah.
this is a pretty cheap fix for liability that comes with it.
Anybody got anything else?
Here, Bill, I see you've got 2 substitutes training bus drivers.
Yes, we're currently working with 2 substitutes, going through the process. One of them is in KC, and one is here in Buffalo as well. So we're chipping away at that. Just want the public to know we're still have that position open for substitute bus driving. It's very crucial, probably the most crucial position in our department is our substitutes, so that we can break those route drivers away and go on these activities that we discuss for most of the night. So remember that those are rolling, and we just definitely need those substitutes to come in and fill in for that.
Sure. Come on, come talk to us.
So real quick, Bill, since you're talking, so we went to Glen Rock a day early because of the roads, but we didn't go with the language department. I'm hoping that we didn't cause some real hard feelings there.
Well, the language department, when we went Wednesday to Glen Rock for a Thursday morning. The language department was a Friday leave,
so
10 a.m. Friday morning, and YDOT had as you woke up that morning, you noticed that the entire state was closed. So that we had to hold off. We went with their predictions of what they were doing. Kudos to Ryan Mader. He was in my office more than I was. So we were looking at all that, trying to make it happen. So, yeah, that was a Friday morning departure with a Saturday return.
Anybody else? Anything for the ops team?
I do want to shout out at Ricky. She passed her audit with flying colors. The auditor had lots and lots of great comments. It was good. So I'm very proud of Ricky and her group.
Yeah, good, Joe. Good. Okay, there's nothing else. We'll go on to admin reports. District admin.
I want to bring something up in my report.
Please.
So we talked at the work session about alternative schedules. We talked about chapter 44. We talked about chapter 2. All those rules are in my board report in the link. Wyoming government administrative rules, and you can see where the alternative schedule actually tells you how long your kindergartner has to go to school, those kinds of things. But a lot of the information that you guys are asking for are really in those rules. So that's kind of exciting.
I particularly enjoyed the little pictures and diagrams that told me how to navigate that site to get what I needed to. That helped a great deal. Anybody else? Board, anything else for the admin?
I just want to go back to what you approved with employment. John Corbin, excited to bring him onto our team and start that process after tonight. So anyway, he has some big shoes to fill, but that lady over there has already said, when can we start transitioning him? So we want to put a big shout out to him and
big welcome
to you, and begin that transition with Lori and her team. So that's a big win for JCSD number 1.
It is. I'm glad he's come. We're going to miss you terribly.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Miller, when I pull up your report, at the top of my screen, it says about blank, and I never could get it to open up. Did anybody else have trouble?
I couldn't get the video.
So that's why you don't get any questions.
They're on to me. It was a new, like a mail thing, so it was a link that it's not working, but I get.
But some of you got it, Travis?
No, I never could.
Nobody got it
either.
I got it.
You got it too?
Yeah.
What are we not supposed to get?
That's another thing. I'll make sure I'll get it sent to you guys.
You got it?
Here's a newsletter form. I tried something different, obviously.
Yeah, it came across different.
But I couldn't get
Oh,
the.
maybe you got to download it instead of just open the preview like that.
Yeah, I couldn't put the video.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Trying all this.
So I don't have any questions.
Yeah, if we don't have any questions, I'll try that again next go.
That's one way to make a meeting short.
It's just trying to smart Dave.
Yeah, everybody pay attention here. Steve's got a new way to do the videos.
So, and I'm a little out of line, but Lori, could you get me Kim Pope's phone number? I tried her personal, but does she have a different phone number through Compass?
She's a parent liaison one, yeah. She does.
If you'd get that to me at some point, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Craig, I have one question, and it was and you weren't here at your board report last time, so, and it's resurfacing again, so I'm not gonna forget to ask it. So it's the current evaluation efforts, so you have the initial evaluations, the 16 reevaluation, and then the 1 referral from a local private school for evaluation. Could you just give us like a rundown on what it really looks like when they're coming from like a private or local private school?
Right.
Like what, just bridge that for me.
so-
Bridge that to me for public school.
So, Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, IDEA, it governs or mandates what we do in special ed. Part of that law is a free and appropriate public education. Even though a student doesn't enroll in our district, we still have obligations for that. It's called child find. And so if somebody comes to us and says, hey, we suspect there's a disability of a student, then
our timelines start, and then we have to move towards some kind of evaluation. So,
and so, like through that evaluation process, when you like find findings that there's a need there, then what happens?
Then there's some possibilities. We might have if they stay enrolled in a private school, we can do a private school plan, which then we work with the school on how those services would be delivered. So, yep.
Are you finding that that's like, just like with the whole like school of choice and like Johnson County, we're not the only show on the road now. And so are you seeing more of that, or is this, or has it been? I know you've not been a director before,
right.
But.
So I'll say we have, from my understanding, we have fewer this year than we had last year.
Oh, okay.
So typically it falls in the areas of speech and language, maybe some of those related services. We've had someone that, let's just say a reading goal that's needed, they would come into our school and we would provide them services in our school. So related services, we might go out or have them come in. It just all depends. So yeah, not a ton, not a large number.
Or if it were ever like, I don't know, I'm just thinking like situation if there was ever like, so we have certain services that are contract, right?
Yes.
And let's just say like a out of school student, like a private school student needs a contract service.
Right.
And so we're still, which, I mean, I know sky isn't falling. I'm really believing that. But I mean, we're grateful in the state of Wyoming that we are fully refunded or, reimbursed for special education, but there's lots of states in our union that aren't. And so I just like think about these things, the what ifs. I mean, just trying to like keep looking ahead. And
so Connie can help me out here, and hopefully I get this right as far as how we determine the amount of money we have to set aside. It's called proportionate share. So it's based on it's based on the number of homeschool kids that we may have in the district, and so we have to set aside a certain amount. And if that money doesn't get spent, then we can reallocate that. So yeah, I would say we had a couple kids early in the year, and parents pulled back and said, no, we don't want those anymore. So right now, this is really the only one, and we don't even know whether the student will qualify for services at this point. So.
Okay.
There's another
That's
critical
interesting.
part you gotta remember too is the maintenance of effort Craig has to do a lot with that one coming to making sure the budgets there's that maintenance of effort with what we do with our budgets.
I guess it would be a really interesting conversation that if they ever did, if they ever did pull out special education, like then we're gonna look at like the federal level, like you said, the payback, and like I don't know, that just to me that just has my mind like it's interesting because anyway, that's just a thought I was having.
With the changing times, we probably won't be having a conversation.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because we are the only state in the nation, I think, that's 100% reimbursable.
Yeah, are we the only one here?
Alabama had to pull back.
Okay, I think there was a couple. Oh, well, thanks, Craig, for answering that, and thanks for bridging that thought process I had.
But you didn't ask me to cite something from previous months.
Yeah, it resurfaced again, so I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna ask about that.
All right. Anything else for the admin team? Next up, board level reports. Rec board.
So April 18th is the due date
Okay.
for grant applications at 5 p.m. Don't know why they said that. I've never been a thing, but 5 p.m.
Now it is 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
All right.
And it's on the website, so
Okay.
grant away.
OCs.
Yeah, so there was a resignation of an executive director in November. So the board did place a selected NOMI. And if you could see this, I had to ask her today how you say the name. Neem Talo. So she was the business manager, facilities director, student services person. And so she's moved into that executive director and they've replaced her as well. And then just wanted to, one of the things that I've learned is that I always thought BOCES was this place in Gillette. And it is. They have a facility in Gillette. It's the Powder River Basin Children's Center. They have a day program along with a residential program, and we have one student placed there. Then Sheridan, BOCES has a day program in Sheridan. We have a student placed there. And then, it's a Northeast Wyoming BOCES, but in Cheyenne, there's also a day program called the Laramie Plains Academy. And so those are the three facilities that this BOCES takes care of. So anyway, that's what I have for you.
Oh, geez.
We've not had a meeting, so nothing to report.
Nothing to report. All right. Next up from the board.
Okay, first off, I will not be attending the LRP training. I've got a scheduling conflict with work. So it will be available for another board member.
Okay.
So we already approved it.
Yeah, we had planned on this. So if there's another board member that wants to go to the LRP conference, give that some thought, reach out to Charles, and I'm sure he'll get Craig involved. Consider that.
Livestock range and pasture?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I'll give you the dates real quick. It is.
They call it LRP too, sorry.
April 27th through April 30th or May 1st with two different itineraries. So tickets purchased.
It's there, so somebody might as well go.
Anymore for someone to say, I can make that work.
Right on.
Mr. Chair, something I'd like for the board to think about is we have a policy in place that reimburses you for mileage. And so I think we need to make an adjustment to that. And the adjustment being that I would like to see it change for any board member or staff member who cannot ride the transportation that is provided that, if I'm saying that correctly, that they are reimbursed. And I'm speaking to our board member who isn't here because he's not able to ride the bus. And I don't think it's fair for him to have to pay for gas himself.
We do have a bus that can haul him. I did reach out to him and offered those services because we do have a handicap available bus. He feels more comfortable driving himself. So it was his choice.
Okay, so we do have it, and I didn't know that.
Yes, we do have one.
Yep, along those same lines. Next time we got a road trip, we could take a couple of Suburbans, depending on how many people went, and we can fit in them and switch coming back. But as an idea, instead of running a whole school bus for the board to go to KC, can we do a couple of Suburbans instead? I mean, Bill, only if this would work with your fleet and needs, but it seems like we might be able to do that. And I fit in a Suburban so much better.
How many seats are in a Suburban?
We can haul 6 in the back, 2 in the front, so 8. And that's tight. As long as Travis gets shotgun, it sounds like it's going to be okay.
That'll help you fit. All right.
Casual's 5 in the back and 2 up front.
So if I can ask Bill, if when we transport kids for Craig Anderson to these different places that may be handicapped or whatever, does that bus take them?
Yes.
Your handicap bus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the board?
The only thing I'd like to say is I was at Meadowlark today at the ski hill.
Nice.
And I'm just extremely impressed with how that all goes together.
Mm-hmm.
I know there wasn't 1,000 kids there, but it seems like 1,000 kids, and they all got to the right place at the right time. And it's just amazing how they get that many people on the hill and then back down the mountain.
In the boots and in the bindings is a pretty impressive accomplishment right there.
I mean, I pulled into Meadowlark. I drove out right in front of the buses, and I pulled in at 3:07. Here comes the buses. It's just amazing.
Right on time.
And I know that the ski hill and Sports Liver does a lot for it too.
Yeah, thanks to them for helping us make that fun program.
I have one thing. I just wanted to say Mike, thank you for giving me a wonderful tour of everything that New West has going. It was so cool to see that hydroponic system they have. Yeah, it's amazing. It's cool. The lettuce, we enjoyed it. So yeah, it was cool to see what those, that whole school is, because I've never been inside of there before. So it's a different look, but it's awesome. And the culinary school part with Chef Sam, I really hope more of the BHS, well, none of our counselors are here, but those, high school kids will take part in that. It's I know it's hard. And can we get that in the high school? Like, come on.
We fill it every hour, and it'll be more difficult as we've moved from the 8 hours to 7. It takes 2 class periods to get that done. So,
and it is so cool because you watch those kids in middle school doing the Better Than Burnt, and
it's fantastic.
Yeah. So,
great program.
Thank you again.
All right, anybody else from the board? Next up, legislative update. Mr. Super.
So with that, the main topic is legislation's obviously over. There's a couple things, not only the legislative update, but the lawsuit that's at hand that came out. So those will be some challenges we have in front of us. I think the one that I just want to talk about tonight is concealed carry. So I've already met with law enforcement and legal staff, and as a board, we will probably have something at our next work session. We have till July 1st, but there are several options, potential options that we need to start having that hard conversation around. Celebration with legislation is $4.5 million. I'm pretty sure went through the budget for the KC project. So that's a big celebration. And then on the radar, recalibration this summer is going to be tough.
Yes.
We won a lawsuit, but the reality is legislation is going to have to find that funding for that lawsuit, and that's going to come back through recalibration on what that looks like and how we fund schools.
Yeah.
So the journey has just begun, and so having those conversations of what that looks like within a boom and bust economy in Wyoming. I hope we don't have bust for a while, but still, just because we won the lawsuit, now legislators have to find the money. So this summer is going to be pretty tough with what that looks like. And there are 3 categories that are, we've heard about special ed, we've heard about transportation, and activities are already the 3 conversations that starting to hear but will be topics of conversation potentially. And class sizes. Class sizes are a big topic. So anyway, there's excitement that we got $4.5 million because that's huge for us.
Yes. The HVAC system.
The legislative piece, though, I will state to you as a board that I did before legislation is over with this concealed carry. We need to do what's best for our community and for us as a school district. So that journey is probably going to be one of our priorities. So,
yeah.
Okay.
And say it again. When do we have to have that new?
July 1st.
July 1 is when we have to have that in place. So I'm sure you guys have seen in the WSBA emails that come out, but they're asking for a real good lobbying push this summer. Go talk to the people on the recalibration committee as many times as we can do it, because I think this will be a tough year. We're going to have a lot of work to do if we're going to get through that the best way we can.
Committee's been established. In some cases, maybe not a friendly committee.
Yeah.
So there will be a lot of good conversations. And just remember, even after recalibration's over, they still make a recommendation to legislation for approval. So it's not just what comes out of recalibration, it's what we push through.
It's going to be pushed all the way.
Next legislative session, which those of you that got an opportunity to travel to Cheyenne can kind of understand that process too.
Yep. Okay. Next year's a budget session, and we'll have to continue our lobbying efforts and try to push through the best recalibration we can do. Anything else, Charles? Am I forgetting anything?
No.
Honey, did we hit all the high points? Okay. April 9th, special session, work session. April 9th, 5:15 here.
So you'll have one more session with Mitch Kraft at that one, and plus a couple other things, so we'll work with you, Travis, to see what that looks like, and then our recommendation for certified staff will be in April.
We'll come through then, okay, so we'll get looking at that. April 14th down in KC, well, next school board meeting will be April 14th in KC.
There's a special request for that. Our middle school band would like to play Star Spangled Banner and one other special performance piece. So the band will be our spotlight.
Okay.
So yeah, if we were to do the Star Spangled Banner and then directly after that, after the gavel drops, do the performance, that'd be great.
Okay.
Seems the kids will all be gathered for that.
We'll have them there and take that right through.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else got anything for the April 14th down to Casey? Okay, that brings us to public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? None. All right, next up, executive session is the next thing on the schedule. Can I get a motion?
Statute 16-4, that's personnel and legal matters.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Was Fox and Bellis all in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. They're saying nay, sorry. Yeah. Guys, short break. Let's have a quick recess, then we will reconvene and come into executive.